as a business owner, we also have to improve ourselves. Entrepreneurship is actually self-development in disguise, because I also believe it runs the other way. And the more we immerse ourselves in growing a business and becoming better entrepreneurs, the more we improve as individuals. Before I talk about how I discovered entrepreneurship is self-development in disguise, I probably should share this. This is not my quote or anything that I've come up with. Entrepreneurship is self-development in disguise is actually something that I heard somebody say not that long back, but I just can't remember who it was. I know James Clear has something similar, and it's pretty much saying the same thing, but I only knew this after trying to find out who said the original quote that I've mentioned by running this through Google and a few other search engines, and I still couldn't find out who it was. So if anyone's listening to this who has also heard this, please feel free to let me know who it is, and I'll add a credit into the notes, because I, for the life of me, can't remember where I heard this from. And it's something that stuck with me since the day I heard it. So whoever said it had a profound impact on me, and I think it's pushed me in a direction of not just more self-discovery, because I think that's important in general, but also it's allowed me to look back at the last 5 years and realize that there is a strong element of truth to this. And it's just kind of highlighted a bunch of stuff to me, which I think is probably worth sharing, which is what this podcast is about. So yeah, that's kind of like my intention for today. It's how I perceive self-development and entrepreneurship pretty much being like the same thing. And I'll give like a couple of examples of this. So here's something I want to share in this topic before we get started, which provides like a base of where I was and where I am now. So before 2020, I'd never really dug into any meaningful self-development or transformational work, because the more I realize it now, I think that all great personal development work is actually transformational. I think that I've seen this in my own life, and people that I've come to meet over the last couple of years who've walked in similar paths to me. It's not something a little bit different. It's transformational. So prior to 2020, I'd read a couple of books, watched a fair few YouTube videos, listened to some really interesting podcasts. But what I've now come to realize is all of that stuff is nice to know, but it's surface level. And pretty obvious to me that unless you're literally doing the work and actively developing and evolving who you are, I think everything else is passive. And I don't know how much of an effect you can get from passive information or anything passive in general. And yeah, I guess like how much change do you think you're going to experience with anything that's passive? Like how much transformation can you expect from something that's passive? And even if you just think of this logically for a moment, if I'm not actively growing and improving as an individual, how can anything change? Because it takes the individual to own that responsibility and become responsible for that change. And I think that if me personally, at least in my experience and what I've come to understand, is if I wasn't active and I didn't decide to change, like consciously change, I'd still have the same habits, traits, and thought patterns as before. So that therefore, like, how can you actually change? You're literally going to be the same person. Yes, you could have experiences and different lessons along the way, but if you're not actively growing, then you're pretty much the same or similar version as who you have always been. So how could I or anyone else start or grow a business operating from the same version of me or the same version of you who's never started, grown, or built a business, but expect things to be different? Like if you just look at it that way and just be pragmatic about it, it's challenging. And I think that it makes sense that in order to improve as a business owner, we also have to improve ourselves. And this is the funny, like, paradox where entrepreneurship and self-development are intertwined. And I think how self-development or entrepreneurship is actually self-development in disguise, because I also believe it runs the other way. And the more we immerse ourselves in growing a business and becoming better entrepreneurs, the more we improve as individuals. And this has been my experience over the last 5 years. And it's only now going the other way, which is personal development to change, that I now see that diving into entrepreneurship and trying to be the best business owner, an individual who has a business, they are on the same path, but just in different directions. And I think this is why I believe that the two are disguised, and you can't, in my opinion, have one without the other. And this is kind of where it gets a little weird, is that the more I became active in my own personal development, so not passive, like actually active, the more I improved as an entrepreneur. And the more I improved as an entrepreneur, the more I improved as an individual. And it's been very obvious and very clear to me over the last 2 to 3 years that that has been my experience. But what I did not expect was a lot of what I was experiencing now also carried over into my personal life and other aspects of my life. So my communication with people in my life has improved, not just in work, but in general. Like my communication and the ability to communicate and listen is in a different stratosphere to what it was pre-2020. And as I mentioned, this isn't just in work, this is outside of work. So there's a trickle out effect that I've definitely seen. And also my understanding of other people's perceptions and experiences, I now understand at a different level. And I can see how other people have different thought processes around the same experience, but we see things from a different perspective. And it's not until I've personally got into self-development and kind of like experienced this for myself and then observed other things and observed that different aspects of my life and experiences and events and circumstances, that you get to see things from a different level, which allows you to see things from other people's perspectives. And I think that is a massive shift for me as a business owner and as an individual as well. And I don't think I would have been aware of this had I not walked the path of an entrepreneur and not walked the same path at the same time as personal development, because I think the two definitely are intertwined. And I think that's why I believe that entrepreneurship is definitely masked and hidden as personal development. So this is kind of like why I'm sharing this today, is like I believe the more active we are as entrepreneurs in our own personal development, the more we'll grow our businesses. And the more aware we become of who we are and what makes us tick, I think it's easier to focus on the stuff that we enjoy, while at the same time sticking to what we're great at for our businesses, our team members, and our clients. Without having that awareness, like you're kind of guessing. You kind of think you know, maybe you don't, maybe you do. And as I mentioned earlier, before 2020, I'd never invested in any active personal development. But since 2020, I've worked with coaches, mentors, to better understand myself so that I can grow as an individual who is capable of growing my business and serving my clients at levels that I did not know would be possible. And I pretty much owe that down to like the personal development work that I've done, but also being in entrepreneurship, like for the duration that I've had it, it's like quite clear to me in my opinion. And like that's been my experience over the last 5 years. And again, working with mentors and coaches in business and mindset and personal development is something that I'll continue to do for as long as I possibly can. And I also believe that we owe it to ourselves and our businesses to grow as individuals. So I think that was my intention today, is to highlight my experience of like the two paths, entrepreneurship and personal development, how they both intertwined. And I think that, in my opinion, like as I mentioned, you can't have one without the other, because in order to grow your business, you're probably going to have to grow and evolve as an individual. So yeah, I hope you found some value in that episode, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.